Georgia. We're at the Spartan race. We're about to go run with Joe, the man himself. Spartan is interesting because it's one of the few events where there's the most camaraderie, most cheering for strangers I've ever seen. There's just some shared experience that sometimes is really different than a 5K or local 10K. It's pretty cool. Come on, athlete! Race with your friends, race with your family, crawl around. You know, we ask about, you know, can you do all the things a human's supposed to do in a day? How was it? Hey, Kelly Sart with Mobility WOD, hanging out with Joe Sena, founder, Spartan Race, but more importantly, the greatest super tourist of all time. Maybe the man who defines super tourists. Now, what we think is that you should have a fitness ready for everything. That's not the only thing. That's part of it. But the other thing is to be willing to expose yourself in front of your friends. So there's been a couple times where I've said, hold this kettlebell, right?
That's right, that's right.
Put you in the pool.
Put me in the pool,
Right, we
yeah.
challenge you a little bit that way.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, why don't you come to my races and see how you do super tourist star at.
Yeah.
You are doing this with your family.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what happened this morning?
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, we're at AT&T Park here in San Francisco. Kelly and I get to see each other every once in a while. Actually, we only see each other, I think, when I'm in San Francisco because you're like, you won't come to me. I got to come here.
I'm not a tourist.
No, but I landed with my son at like 8 a.m. Came over here, got out of the cab, saw you, and you're like, hey, let's race. And I just had this. I have everything on that I.
You racing that?
I just yeah, and my son had his Crocs on, and it was awesome, right? Because you get right in, and so I'm a big subscriber to this idea of fire, ready, aim, rather than aim, ready, fire, right? Because if you just fire, and I'm trying to think of an example that's going on in my life right now. I decided we were going to make a documentary. And so normally you would sit down and sketch it out and plan and find who the right film people are, etc. And I was like, no, let's just start filming now. And it, like everything in life, it just sort of works out. You figure it out, right? And here's another example. I'm in Vancouver. My family and I just moved to Vancouver. Again, 2 weeks notice. I told my wife, I said, I know we were planning on...
Who may be the greatest super tourist of all time.
She's the best.
All right, we're in. Let's go.
She's the best. And it was, we had already planned to be in New York. It was the second week in August, so we had the school set up for the kids. And I was like, you know what? Living in the United States doesn't feel as cerebral. It doesn't feel as academic.
You guys have just been in Tokyo.
We lived in Tokyo. We lived in Singapore again. Super tour. We just went. But it was this summer, second week in August. We're already set up with school. We rented a house. We're going to be in New York for the year. And I'm sitting there on my little rope machine. And I'm like, just doesn't feel as cerebral. Doesn't feel as academic. I kind of like being overseas, but I can't get a visa. It's only 2 weeks before school starts. Canada. Maybe I can get a visa in Canada. So my wife was at the beach with the kids. She has no idea this is happening. I called my buddy in Canada and I said, hey, you got 2 seconds to answer. Where would you live in Canada if you had to pick a spot? He goes, Vancouver. I'd never been to Vancouver before. My wife comes back from the beach. I said, hey, we're moving to Vancouver. I didn't know what the reaction was going to be, right? I didn't know if she was going to say, no, we're not, hit me with a frying pan, but she said, we're in. And within 2 weeks, we had rented a house, and we're living in Vancouver. We found a school. And so it makes life interesting, right? Why wouldn't you live that way? If you sit and plan every single detail, what ends up happening is you talk yourself out of it.
Be a super tourist. Show up. And you do a lot of prep. I mean, this isn't like you guys were like, we've lived in this house for 30 years, let's go to Vancouver.
No, I mean, we took our clothes.
But you, as one does. But, you know, it's interesting that the allegory for the way you guys are living as a family,
yeah.
Your son did this race in his Crocs.
In Crocs, yeah.
Did he know he was doing the race?
He did not know he was doing the race. And, you know, I used to joke a lot when we started this company over a decade. This is an overnight success. I've been working on it for 17
like everyone.
years.
Best new artist.
Yeah, I've been working on it for 17 years. And the whole reason it exists is because I personally believe you should just be able to show up and deal with shit, right? So like, you come out of the swim in an Ironman and somebody stole your bike seat. What do? You bike 100 and whatever miles without a bike seat.
You don't dig
right?
it, but you do it.
You do it. You don't dig it, but you do it. And so Charlie, my son, gets here. He's got Crocs on, right? He hasn't eaten breakfast. You're like, we're going to race. He's got 3 minutes to go. Just do it.
Love it.
Deal with it.
I talked with George this morning. I said, hey, G, let's make sure we're up and ready because we're not going to be able to control the day. Once we get there, it's out of our hands. So let's be ready. So we went, and Georgia was like, what? But and I was like, tie your shoes. Right. Here we go. And being a super tourist means you got to put in the work. But also go challenge, go be uncomfortable, and don't be afraid to look like a schmuck in front of your friends.
No, drop the ego. Drop the ego, right? Because I've looked like an idiot in front of you. And by the way, everybody who challenges me from around the world, I'll tell you a funny story, wants to crush me, right? Because here's this guy that does burpees. He's supposed to be so tough. He does Spartan race. We're going to show him. So I had this guy during the summer, and he said, hey, I'm going to meet you at 5 a.m. for a workout. We're going to go for a big bike ride. And I thought, he must be a good biker. So I'm going to go running instead, right? So I wanted to give myself a little advantage. So he shows up, it's 5 a.m., and we start running, and within a minute or two of the run, I find out he represented New Zealand as like a runner.
Oh!
Right?
He was trying to give you that.
So I can't keep up with him. I'm out of breath. I'm looking like a jerk in front of my friends. So I said, just so you know, when I run, every mile I stop and do 30 burpees.
Oh.
By the 10th mile...
Doesn't mean you can't game it.
By the 10th mile, he was broken. Right? The story gets better. Calls me a week later and says, hey, just so you know, I haven't been able to shampoo my hair for a week because I can't lift my arms. So don't be afraid to look like an idiot in front of your friends, but you could also make them look like idiots.
That's right. Hey, how do we find out? I just got to say, this is my second Spartan race.
And you enjoyed it?
Oh, yeah. We'll do one all the time.
Okay.
That's a nice touch base. How am I? Can I run? Can I move?
Exactly.
You know, and it really, just speaking personally for my family, my daughter went, we did Tahoe.
Yep.
And she was like, oh, this is why we should run. Because next year I want to do this. So this has been hanging out over our head for a year.
Yep.
And it gave us reason to run as a family context. So thanks for giving us
It's a great commitment thing. The other thing a lot of people don't know, you don't know, if you need an extra challenge, what we'll do, if you email me in advance, right, Joe, anybody can email me, joe@spartan.com, and I know you need a challenge, we could run you in front of the spear throw. And actually people will throw spears as you're going by just to amp it up a bit.
Because supertourist.com is already taken, so you can Spartan. See you guys tomorrow.